Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and yesterday was what some people are calling the first Super Saturday of the Eurovision 2021 season. I would contest that slightly because 3 songs were chosen and the other shows were semi-finals, but it's whatever. Anyway, the first to declare a result was Finland with the final of Yhden musiikin kilpailu 2021. I don't know how to say 2021 in Finnish, but sort of continuing the pattern that we've had in national finals thus far this year, winning by an absolute landslide in, seriously, look it up, the results were crazy, in a good way. Finland chose Joel Hokka, Nico Wilhelm, Jonas Porkko, Olli Matella, Tommi Lalli, and Aleksi Kaunisvesi. I hope I said that right because I enjoy speaking Finnish, but that doesn't mean I'm good at it. But anyway, together they are Blind Channel, fan favourite rock band situation, and their song is called Dark Side. And if you're familiar with the song of the same title by Kelly Clarkson, it is nothing like the song of the same title by Kelly Clarkson. This is presented fully in English, or certainly it was at the national final. Music and lyrics by Nikko Moilanen, Joel Hokka, Jonas Porkko, Aleksi Kaunisvesi, and Olli Matella. So it's largely a homegrown affair, and I think it shows. I've been positively impressed by the public reception to this, by the way, because it's sort of a bit of a guitar-y one, and Eurovision fans tend to freak out when they hear guitars. So the fact that everyone's been so happy about this, been a pleasant surprise. So let's see how I feel about this song then. So yeah, going into things, I had already heard quite a bit about this song before listening to it for myself, including what genre it was, and by how big of a landslide it won UMK by, and just generally how beloved it was by the fandom at large, which was kind of a surprise, as I said. Having listened to it, it certainly met the expectations that its reputation had set for it, so jolly good show there right out of the gate. Blind Channel seemed to draw a fair bit of inspiration from Linkin Park from what I've seen, well, at least when it comes to their musical style, and yeah, I'm absolutely on board with that. In fact, this whole song sort of kind of strikes me as if, if Iceland 2019 was kind of the same, but instead of bondage, they were a bit happier, if that makes any sense at all. And to reiterate, I find it encouraging as well. You know, Finland has gone back to what we consider to be their comfort zone after so long, because they slayed with stuff of this general flavour for 3 consecutive years, from 2006 to 2008. And they've taken back to that style pretty much like a duck to water. I've missed this side of you, Finland. But more than that, as I said, I am so heartened to see that the public reception has been overwhelmingly positive here as well. Still though, just because it's gone down a storm with the fandom doesn't mean I'll turn a blind eye to either side of this review, but as ever, I'm going to start with the positive stuff because that's just how I do. So let's get started. Well, first things first, whether or not you like it is one thing, but either way, you cannot deny that this song absolutely commands attention, and it leaves a crazy strong impression. My mother specifically praised it for how it starts with the refrain. It sets a precedent and it sticks to it throughout. There is no mistaking when this song is on, and when it's gone, it's rather good at sticking in one's head, or so I find. I was singing it to myself as I was setting up to record this review. That's the kind of impression it leaves. Even taking away the rebellious visuals and just focusing on the sound, it's still memorable, and that will serve them very well when the voting lines open in May. That said, let's not overlook the visual components here. As a group, they utterly dominate the stage, which furthers the effectiveness of the aforementioned impression leaving. Some songs suffer from looking like they drown in a sea of nothingness on larger stages, but given the crazy amounts of presence that the group brings, even if you don't factor in the stunning cinematography of the national final performance, yeah, I think Finland won't have to worry about that whatsoever. At all. They're gonna be fine this year. What really delivers the slam dunk coup de grace, though, is the long, sustained growl note right at the end of the song. True, it's not the wildest or, the far and away #1 most proficient example we've ever heard, but then again, after Hungary 2018, that would be a tough act to follow, but it's still It does the job extremely well, and it wouldn't be fair to compare like that anyway. It shows off the singer's talents, but it also sums up the feelings of the song at large, and puts like a nice little sort of black velvet ribbon on the power of the entire package. It seals the deal on a performance that really gives the impression that the whole band embodies exactly the life and world that they're singing about. I sort of hope that they don't really live like they sing about, but you know. In fact, that's something to highlight in its own right, come to think of it. Despite first impressions, the song actually has something of a chaotic, positive message, albeit in the form of the world is terrible, might as well embrace the mayhem and live your best life anyway. Sure, it suggests doing so by less than healthy means, but it's an extreme example that people can latch onto, knowing full well they'll never go as far as that themselves, but still find joy in it. What makes it worth pointing out at this stage, though, is, as I said, that the band seem to believe so wholeheartedly, so sincerely in their song. Even if they don't mean it literally, and they intend for the listeners to put a layer of abstraction between themselves and the literal meaning of the lyrical body, you can tell, without a doubt, that they are prepared to stand by this song every step of the way, which makes the live performance all the more convincing. Colour me impressed, Finland. But, of course, don't forget, just because the song has proven extremely popular so far does not mean that everyone has to like it. I want everyone's opinions to feel at least seen here. I want to acknowledge, not everyone's going to like it. For example, one thing that you might not like in this case is that, for want of a better word, you could argue that there's something of a blustery quality to the performance. I find the whole thing to be enjoyable and highly effective, but to a more cynical eye, I could see the entire package coming across like they're relying too heavily on the impression left by their image and sound, and the actual content they back it up with seems a bit lacking as a result. That is to say, strip back the guitars, the drums, and the screaming vocals, and what are we left with? Depending on your tastes, something that can come across very, "It's not a phase, Mom." Perhaps to compensate for that, there are some problematic aspects to deal with as well. For one thing, they come right out of the gate on thin ice with the lyric about putting your middle fingers up. The EBU might allow them to say that, sure, the line itself isn't objectionable, but I don't think they'll be allowed to actually do it, much less condone anyone else doing it. It's considered an extremely obscene gesture in some countries, and the EBU, when it comes to Eurovision, does tend to adhere to the censorship standards of its strictest member for any given contest, which means that flipping the bird, kind of off the table. And also, fair warning to people of a sensitive disposition, I'm going to talk about something a bit dark here. They make a rather blasé mention, on several occasions no less, of the 27 Club. For those who aren't aware, there are several influential musicians over the years who all coincidentally died at age 27, including Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, etc. In the context of the lyric that it appears in, it can be interpreted as if they're condoning self-harm or worse on the grounds of it being better to be dead than to grow up. Overall, if you take that sort of cynical approach to this song, you might come away from it struggling to take the whole act seriously. Of course you might not, this is all just hypothetical. If someone doesn't like the song, this might be why, so bear that in mind. For instance, the lyrics can be read like a rebellious temper tantrum, they have, quote-unquote, too much fun with the live performance, and on top of that, there's the whole hoo, 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 like barking dog noises within the lyrics. If you're on the band's wavelength like I am, like most people seem to be, then it's a great time, but if you're not a fan, I can imagine you might well compare this song to, Pizza Cutter. All edge and no point. Now then, long-time viewers of mine will know that this sort of music did play a huge role in my childhood and sort of development of my tastes. So, despite what you might expect, it is close to my heart. In spite of that, I think I'll give this a personal score of 8 out of 10, which may come as a surprise to some people. Don't misunderstand, I am so happy to hear this sort of music back at Eurovision, and from a country that has so much history with the genre no less. But I can't get away from that voice in my head saying that there's a lot of this song that's, it's just performative, which is just me trying to tear myself down for liking this sort of thing. I'm not coming after the band here. My mother has grown rather fond lately of an expression, and that's what's coming to mind here. Beware of people who tell you how tough they are, because a lion doesn't have to tell you he's a lion. I get that sort of feeling from this song if I look at it from like a critical perspective. A lot of it is telling rather than showing. Ooh, look how badass we are. I feel like I'm probably just being a grumpy old man here. I'm erring on the side of caution. I love the song, but I am painfully aware of what other people might detract from it. That being said though, on the technical side, I will be much more generous and give it a 9. It blows in, leaves a hugely strong impression that lasts far beyond when they step back off the stage, and the live performance, as well as being on point in terms of musicality, and emotion, and choreography, and cinematography, it fills the stage and really puts on a show. As rock, metal, and so on kind of songs go at Eurovision though, there is a tiny part of me that does feel a little bit like, it's kind of a tiny bit cookie cutter. Like, for instance, I know, as I said, it's not fair to compare like this, but for the sake of demonstration, let's look at Hungary 2018 for a hot second. Something about the composition of that song felt a bit more sincere and earnest, while this feels like it was more formulated to make the exact impression that I praised it for making. And my being aware of that, or at least my feeling like I'm aware of that, sort of pulls down the experience somewhat. It's still worth a 9 though, because it's good music and it's performed well, and I am, as I said, so ecstatic to hear this at Eurovision. It's just, there's a part of me that's like, am I overcompensating? You know, should I be more negative to make up for the fact that I like it so much? So that might be where this is coming from. Now though, just for a minute, let's put the song to one side. How would I rate how the broadcaster reacted to the cancellation of last year's contest? Not good, I'm afraid. Sure, we got an absolute banger of a song out of the deal, but I'm not talking about the song at this point, I'm talking about the Finnish broadcaster's response to the pandemic. And it was kind of nothing but bad PR from start to finish. To explain, first up, they made quite a show out of saying that, yes, we're going to hold UMK as normal, and Axel won't be invited to participate, he won't get any special privileges. And then Axel Kankaanranta, their chosen singer from last year who took part in the national final again this year, he revealed that he wasn't going to participate anyway. But then, later down the line, he ended up, as I understand it, in a contract with a songwriting team that he worked with to produce a song that he was happy to submit to the selection, only to be non-disclosure agreemented into not being able to talk about it, so it made him out to be a liar about his non-participation. In terms of public relations, it was an absolute disaster for everyone involved. They did make up for it by having Axel's song in the final shortlist of competing entries though, so it's not all bad news, but it made Axel look bad, it made YLE look bad, it made a lot of people look bad, and it was very unfortunate. But as I said, we got a great song out the other side, so it's not all doom and gloom. But will we see Blind Channel again on Saturday night? I think the odds of that are very high, to be honest, but by no means absolute. I think it is at least 90% safe, if not more so, in my mind, chiefly because, as I keep reiterating, it leaves such a powerful impression. And the impression it leaves lasts as well. And the public reaction to it thus far, not least taking into account the massive difference between its score and second place in the national final, seems to cement that general sentiment is positive towards this one. People will want to see it in the final. I only hesitate slightly because I wonder what the juries will make of it. Chances are, they will praise the attitude and the competence of the stage performance and the sheer power of their presence and all of that beautiful stuff, but I feel like it has a minor, tiny hurdle to overcome in the form of more cynical jurors who either automatically take against music of this genre because it makes my ears bleed. We get that every year whenever guitars are involved. And or cynical jurors who find the song to be a bit too on the nose. Realistically, I think Blind Channel will have no trouble reaching the final, and I look forward to seeing them there, but just be aware that there is that tiny chance that nothing's set in stone at this point. But that's just me. I could very well be overthinking. I encourage you, as ever, listen to the song for yourself. Let me know how you feel. Let's have a civilized discussion. I look forward to seeing what other people think. But in the meantime, to Blind Channel, to Team Finland, I wish you the very best of luck, and like I said, I want to hear you again in the grand final, so let's see just how far you get in May.